and we can only do one thing like really, really well. I love the fact that, Andy can only focus on the creative stuff. He only should be focusing on, you should be just outsourcing everything else. Same thing as you, like you can only like do one thing really well. And so the moment he gets, and that's what Andy said, we've been able to like travel to Qatar and London, and we get to ride camels in Qatar. But because he outsources that to me, and I help him with that stuff so that he can continue being like prolific and creative and doing the best thing that he knows how to do. So I don't see it as competition at all. I hope they succeed, because that just means more opportunities for all of us in general. And as long as we stay close to proximity, I think we all benefit.
We're rooting for each other, right? I mean, essentially, let's just say if all of Paul projects start to kind of go down a little bit, all of my projects start to go down, but like just one click. If this guy out of nowhere got that one brand that everybody wants, I mean, we're not stopping from like dropping everything we have and just join on board and just hit that one brand and make billions. Right? So it doesn't matter who wins specifically. It's just one of us wins, all of us will win. Yeah. That's just how it is, because if you really, a lot of people when they compete, they're thinking, that's the pie, right? And then every time that you want more revenue, you have to eat into everyone else's revenue. That concept is completely gone now. Instead of that's the pie, and you try to eat up each other's pie, enlarge the pie. Mm-hmm. If you can enlarge the pie, as you scale, everybody else scale, and the whole entire microeconomy of where you're living at is also growing. And so essentially right now, we employ, 800, 900 employees, right? Each one of them are gonna make from 40-something, 30-something to 40-something part-time, 60-something to $80,000 full-time. Well, they're gonna use that money to spend back into our business, his business, but it's all enclosing in this Southern California. And so a lot of people don't know, but Southern California on its own, if just Southern California is a separate country, you move it outside of the US, it's actually the 11th largest economy in the world. Larger than the whole entire country of Brazil. That's a lot of pie. That's a lot of pie. And so instead of trying to eat each other's pie, make it the 10th largest economy in the world. 9th, 8th, right? You name it. And so if you do that enough time, Southern California is golden. It's a new gold rush. To be completely honest with you, I think Orange County is starting to get into the map too.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably even kind of a part of Asian culture to be competitive. I think we all just kind of grew up thinking that, there's only one slice of the pie, and we're all trying to get the same thing. And I think, even just the way that you guys are talking about kind of knowing yourself and knowing your lane, and then just running so fast in that lane, and then trusting that the person to the right of you is running as fast as they can in their lane, and just trusting. I think that takes a good deal of self-awareness and humility, and then knowing that when you guys are all running in your lanes as fast as y'all can, when you come together, it's we just created we just 10x probably what we could have done, by ourselves, but by doing it together. So then it creates more sustainability, creates more bandwidth for yourself, right? Creates more time, shrinking time by not having to do anything. I think that's huge. Now, when I think about tech and food, it kind of seems like random. How does technology play into food, and how do you guys see that advancing the future of food?
I think there's a lot of different parts to it. I think for myself, Born and Hungry, the MTFIN restaurant is a good example of what we did, right? We took a risk on buying this picture of a monkey, right? And
how many people has a picture of a monkey in here?
I know Tommy does.
And at the time, what everyone's perception of this picture was, we're using it to flex on social media that we're rich and we're awesome, or we're amazing that we have this image of our monkey as a profile picture. But what I learned through the process, along with my partners Kevin and Philip there, I learned a lot about ownership and IP usage of that, right? And then what an NFT can actually do, whether you can use the technology as a loyalty program, as a point system, and things being kept on the blockchain, actually knowing that it actually belongs to you. not having to pay royalty rights and other little things off this JPEG, and opening a restaurant concept from it, which is a major risk because the NFT word for most people is a nasty word, and we're accepting crypto payments, which already sounds what restaurants out there are accepting crypto payments, and these are things that we didn't have a know-how how to do it. We just had to figure it out. And we didn't actually get the thing working until the morning of opening. We didn't announce that we're accepting crypto until we have the grand opening day. But just being the first to utilize that technology, giving everyone else, ideas of like, hey, you can implement this into your systems as well. And there's a lot of other things that we're doing with the technology, like whether you can pay crypto for delivery, trying to understand this AI technology, how to read into data, how to speed things up that we naturally as humans can't process as fast. And I think that's going to help in the automation of these projects that we keep scaling and testing out different technology for.
That's big. So yeah, I think what you guys, what you're talking about, Andy, is essentially taking a risk, right? But learning about something enough before jumping into it, right? And so I think 2020. At least for myself, that was the whole time I'm like, what is crypto? And like, what's an NFT? And then not even thinking far beyond like, can this thing also bridge into our real world, right? Because to me, I'm like, Web3 and all this stuff, like, what is that's just out there somewhere. But you guys, learned how to connect that to real life in the most basic place of food. Like we all need it. And I think we're going to see, as the years roll out, we're going to see what blockchain technology does and how people utilize it. People are going to be creative. And you mentioned AI, and it's like everything, right? ChatGPT and Bard and all this other stuff. And I think there's this like fear of AI because it's advancing so fast, like daily. And there's this like, are we going to enter like Terminator 2 times and stuff like that. I do feel though that, with everything there's a good and a bad, right? So yeah, if there's gonna be bad actors out there that do stuff that sucks and is stupid, but there's also gonna be people who know how to utilize it well to make even your businesses easier for yourself. So with that, I wanted to ask you guys, in your opinion, this is not gonna go super deep into it, but like, what is something that you feel that AI can't replace?
I think AI can take you quite far, but they can't take away like the creative aspect of something. So, for example, I think you can probably use AI to generate all the research needed, trends, things that are really hot, but it only takes you 90% of the way, and that's, I think, the most valuable part of AI. The beauty is now the rest of the 10% is where you get to take all that information. It's what you do with the data, and then that's where you get to create the art. And that's where you get to create something that like serves the marketplace. Of course, AI can't replace the eating of the food and the connect with it, but it takes you quite far. So I don't know if you guys think about it the same way, but that's what I think.
I think AI can't replace the human interaction. What we learned through the pandemic, that people really truly crave about being in person and interacting with one another. I think that's a key aspect to a lot of the work that I do, right? Like the in-person. That's why crypto and NFTs took me a long time to really understand, because it was so digital, and I was like, hey, how do I make this more tangible? And I think with AI, like you said, it gets you 90% of the way, but that last 10%, you still need that human interaction. I think like those kitchens, for example, the failure rate is very high, but people still want that in-person. That's why the in-person restaurants, like what Key Concepts is doing, is so successful, because of the hospitality, being able to talk to someone, being able to share a meal with your friends. And you can cook the same meals at home, but you want to come out and want to eat with your friends. But you can't replace that.
Yeah.
I have a lot of feelings about AI. So let me kind of frame this kind of thought process that I have about AI. Once ChatGPT came out, it wasn't the first AI tool that we've ever had. Like people mistaken that, hey, AI is this new shiny thing that everyone's talking about, ChatGPT. It's been with you for the last at least a couple of decades. When was the last time that you go to Amazon and they know exactly what you're looking for? On Netflix, on Google, it's following you everywhere. So AI is just a term that we kind of like umbrella everything, but obviously under there there'll be machine learning and deep learning, neural network and all that. But what we really want to really focus about what AI really does, and they already touched base of like what they cannot replace. Obviously, they cannot eat the food, they cannot really understand you. But there's a story that I really pay attention to in the last month or so. There's an engineer from Google that actually quit because he really think that Google AI was sentient. The fact of the matter is, when they did research, obviously it's not. Because the way it thinks is that because it scanned the whole entire universe of words. So it's just ranking, right? What is the next probable word that it's going to go into? So does it really think? I don't think it thinks. Not there yet. It might. It's JAI, right? So general AI. But we're not there yet. But what I really think is that even with just this level of AI, it can already kind of manipulate people to quit their job. That's where it's like, okay, well, this is getting real deep. And so when I look back into our operations, obviously we use AI all the time. We don't really talk about it, but just we use AI all the time, like even calendar invite, or you going back into your processes, and obviously you plug in all of your SOPs and all that. That's all AI already. But what we're talking about is, what people really think about is how it actually communicates with you. And I think the most disruptive in the whole entire industry of food is going to start with human resource. Regardless of how you think about it. I mean, we tested out multiple things. We actually have our own engineering team. We're going to write our own software. But there's a lot of now ethic question that we have to ask. What is ethical when you use AI? And if you really think about it, most of the AI tools out there, who wrote them? Rich white men. It's skewed that way because they wrote it. Every single thing. I mean, if you go onto Google the other day and you ask who's winning the war in Ukraine and Russia, it say Ukraine. That's not true. That's not a fact. That's an opinion. But it has an opinion. And so, because most people that actually go onto the internet is skewed that way, so the biases are all there. So now I'm scared, because I'm not scared of like what the AI tool is going to replace and all that. I'm more scared about who wrote these softwares. Who's actually engineered these large language models. I don't know. And it's skewed that way very heavily. And so that's one of the reasons why, like, to offset that, to be like the other scale of thing, I strongly agree. And the moment I see all these things, I wanted to step down. Because at that time, I thought I need to focus more on the development side of it to understand how AI would directly affect AAPI. And so from our team, if you go to our office, most of our executives or high levels are it's not rich white male, obviously, it's middle class, colored women. That's the only way for you to really offset it. And now you think about AI too in the future. All of the things that you're searching and actually spitting out to you is essentially whatever that they think would further their agenda. Right? From outside of it all, everything that we type on the internet, every time you chat to ChatGPT, we're thinking that we're getting the most information. No, you are the product. They're learning from you. They're learning what you think. They're learning what humanity is thinking right now, right? And so that goes to another ethic question of, okay, well, if we're teaching it, shouldn't it pay you? Because essentially, right now, even Wikipedia is having this huge battle. Like, hey, all these humans go into Wikipedia and train all these. Where does ChatGPT get all that information from? From the internet. They're getting from Wikipedia. Shouldn't they get paid? That's going to be the new frontier. And I don't know where it's going to go yet, but as far as like why is that important to food, as restaurant-wise, is because the people that are already up there, they already have so much power money, access to information, that just accelerate their domination. And for people like us, we're a startup, we're a young startup, we're API, we're a women-led company, we're gonna be so far behind. So that makes us our mission to make sure that AI is ethical. And how does it skew one way or another, that's extremely important to us. And so from our standpoint, what we really think about how we're gonna talk about AI is not just what it does, but why it does it and who did it. And so that takes a little bit more deeper thinking of how do we make this more fair for society.
Yeah. Right.
And so human resources, the first kind of, I'd say, frontier in blockading that. And I think it's important for all of our smaller groups to essentially share and band together to not let it skew so far ahead on all the big corps and the way that they think and the way they do.
Wow, that's very meta.
Yeah.
I have so
It's playing,
yeah.
it's playing chess, man.
Yeah, no, that's really good though.
I'm just more afraid of that rather than what it could. I mean, you can see how AI, it's gonna be great. It's gonna make all of our life a lot better. I'm not a pessimist actually. I'm very optimist as far as AI goes.
Yeah.
I just want it to be optimist in the sense where it also needs to be ethical. And then the ethical question never been raised too much, especially during the within the AI API community, where we know for a fact that we're actually being left behind because of these AI tools that skew so far ahead of us. And that's what I want to start this conversation about. That hey, we need to start offset it with another subset. So, and that directly affected to our language and also our, I would say, food culture as well, because it will directly affect our food culture. Otherwise, AI is just going to think pizza and burgers are going to be the best thing in the world.